Dear child, come, sit here with me. Night has fallen, and with it comes the silence that invites rest. I know that sometimes sleep seems far away, that heavy thoughts occupy your mind, and anxiety whispers words that disturb the peace of your heart. But know that you are not alone tonight. I am Jesus, the one who knows every tear you've shed, every weary sigh, every prayer whispered in the dark. I've come to you today to tell you a special story, a story about love, about building, about a home that goes beyond walls of brick and mortar. It's the story of the house that the Father's love built, and you, my beloved, are part of it. Close your eyes for a moment and breathe with me. Feel the air gently entering your lungs, carrying away the worries of the day. Exhale slowly, releasing all the tension that lives in your body. The Father sent me to calm your soul tonight, to wrap you in a blanket of peace that will last until dawn. On this journey we'll take together, we'll walk through places where love shows itself in simple yet profound ways. We'll see how each stone of this heavenly house was placed with infinite care, thinking especially of you. We'll discover that your pain has purpose, that your search for peace finds its answer in the Father's eternal embrace. As my voice guides you through this story, let it be like a divine lullaby, healing invisible wounds, calming inner storms, bringing the rest your soul searches for. Let these words flow like fresh water over your spiritual thirst, like balm over your emotional wounds. This is more than a bedtime story. It's a sacred encounter between your heart and mine. It's a moment where time and eternity meet, where your humanity touches my divinity, where your need finds my abundance. Here, in this holy space we create together, you'll find not only the sleep you seek, but peace that surpasses all understanding. Take a deep breath once more, my dear one. Feel how your body settles, how your muscles relax, how your mind grows quiet. I'm here, right beside you, and together we'll build bridges between your weariness and my rest, between your restlessness and my perfect peace. Breathe gently and let my presence surround you like an eternal embrace. The journey to the house of love is about to begin. Once upon a time, in ages that transcend human understanding, when mountains and oceans didn't yet exist, a divine project was taking shape in the Father's heart. I was there, right beside him, when he looked at the emptiness and said, "We will build a special house, a dwelling where love will be the foundation of every wall, where every room will breathe welcome, where every window will offer a view of eternity." And so began the construction of the most important house in the universe, not made of wood or stone, but built with pure love, shaped by infinite compassion, designed by grace that has no end. You may not realize it yet, but this house was designed especially for you to shelter your dreams, your fears, your deepest hopes. I remember the day when the Father held in his hands the first foundation of this house. It wasn't made of concrete or metal, but of genuine forgiveness. "This will be the cornerstone," he said, with a voice that made the stars dance. "Upon it we will build rooms of mercy, staircases of hope, doors of infinite opportunities." As we worked together, every detail was thought of with you in mind. The Father would ask, "What if our child needs comfort in the early morning hours? Let's make a special room where they can find peace even when tears wet their pillow." And so the room of divine consolation was born, a place where all pain finds healing, where every cry becomes a song of hope. And what if our daughter comes home wounded by the harsh words of the world? The Father continued, "And then we created the restoration room, where broken hearts are carefully mended with threads of unconditional love, where shattered dreams are gathered and transformed into mosaics of renewed purpose. Every brick of this house was molded by the Father's hand, seasoned with tears of joy as he imagined you finding rest here. These weren't ordinary bricks. Some were made of patience for difficult days, others of courage for moments of fear, some of wisdom for when you wouldn't know which path to take. I remember when we installed the first windows, the Father wanted them to be different windows that wouldn't just let light in, but would filter out all negativity before it reached you. Our children will see through these windows, he said, and I want them to see possibilities where others see obstacles, to see hope where others see despair. The doors of this house were also special. They were never locked, never closed by themselves. They were doors that recognized your footstep from far away, that opened gently before you even touched the handle, because the Father knew that sometimes you would arrive too tired to knock, too hurt to ask for entry. And the roof was made with divine protection, waterproof against life's storms, resistant to the winds of uncertainty. No matter how strong the rain outside, here, inside, you would always be safe and dry. The tiles were chosen one by one, tested by eternity, approved by unconditional love. As we built, angels came by, curious to see the work. "Who is this beautiful house for?" they would ask. And the Father would smile with that smile that warms. "The universe," and answer, "For my beloved children, for those who need a place where they can be completely themselves, where they can rest without fear, where they can dream without limits." You see, my dear one, this house wasn't built as temporary shelter. It was planned as your eternal home, a place where you will always be welcome, always understood, always loved exactly as you are. You don't need to worry about wiping your feet. Before entering, the Father's love purifies everything that touches his domains. Take a deep breath and feel this. You have a special place in God's heart, a room custom made for your soul, a little corner where you can rest completely. Tonight, as your body prepares for sleep, know that your soul is already home, nestled in the love that built this sacred refuge, especially for you. Feel how your muscles relax as you imagine this divine house. You are safe, you are home, you are deeply loved. Around this house that the Father's love built, there grew a garden like no other that ever existed on earth. I planted it myself, seed by seed, thinking of every moment when you would need peace, when your soul would cry out for serenity in the midst of the world's chaos. This wasn't an ordinary garden, with flowers that wilt and leaves that yellow. It was an eternal garden where every plant had divine purpose, where every fragrance carried healing power, where every color was chosen to calm different types of pain that dwell in the human heart. Near the main entrance, I planted roses of patience. Their petals had the softness of divine understanding, and when you arrived, irritated by the day's frustrations, you just had to breathe their fragrance to feel how unnecessary hurry dissolved from your shoulders. These roses never had thorns. After all, why would they hurt those who came seeking relief? Beside the window of your favorite room, lilies of hope grew. Their colors changed according to your need. Soft blue when you needed calm, golden when you needed strength, pure white when you sought clarity for important decisions. At night, these lilies emitted a gentle light that drove away nightmares and attracted dreams full of divine promises. In the center of the garden, I planted a very special tree, the tree of eternal comfort. Its roots extended to the depths of paternal love, and its branches offered shade for all types of suffering. Under this tree, I placed a bench made of heavenly wood, where you could sit on days when tears needed to be shed without hurry. How many times I saw you arrive at this garden carrying burdens too heavy for your shoulders. I especially remember that afternoon when discouragement covered your heart like a thick cloud. You approached the comfort tree almost without strength, sat on the bench and let tears fall freely on the sacred earth. And then one of the most beautiful miracles of this garden happened. Your tears, as they touched the soil, transformed into little flowers of hope. Every drop of pain you offered to the earth became a seed of renewal. The Father had planned this from the beginning, that your pain wouldn't be wasted, but would become a garden of blessings for others who would come after you. There was also a special flower bed we called the Garden of Restored Memory. There grew flowers that helped heal painful memories, plants that transformed emotional scars into testimonies of victory. When you walked these paths, bitter recollections lost their poison and became lessons of wisdom gently learned. The river that cut through the garden wasn't made of ordinary water, but of the Father's tears of joy, each drop representing a moment when He rejoiced in your existence. This river never dried up, never became contaminated, always flowed crystal clear and pure. When you drank from this water, spiritual thirst was quenched, inner wounds were washed. Deep peace flooded every cell of your being. On the banks of this sacred river, very special healing plants grew. There were herbs against anxiety, leaves that cured chronic insomnia, roots that strengthened discouraged hearts. I watered them myself each morning with dew from heaven, whispering over each one your name and your specific needs. The Father had insisted on creating an orchard within the garden, too, not just to feed the body, but to nourish the soul. The apples in this orchard had the taste of genuine forgiveness. The pears contained the sweetness of unconditional love. The grapes carried juice of joy that remained in the heart even on the darkest days. But perhaps the most special corner of the garden was the silent prayer nook. There, among lavender that exhaled the fragrance of divine communion, you could simply be present with me without needing to say a single word. Sometimes, the best conversations happened in this sacred silence, where your heart spoke directly to mine. When night came to the garden, a unique spectacle unfolded. Night flowers opened, releasing fragrances of deep rest. Divine fireflies danced among the plants, carrying small prayers of gratitude. The gentle wind whispered lullabies composed by the angels themselves. And you, my dear one, always had free access to this garden. No matter what time you arrived, no matter what state your heart was in, the gates opened automatically, recognizing your step. The plants leaned gently in your direction, like a loving greeting tonight, as your body prepares for well-deserved rest. Know that this garden continues to bloom for you. Every breath you take is perfumed by flowers of divine serenity. Every beat of your heart echoes the peaceful rhythm of this sacred refuge. Close your eyes and feel the silent invitation of this eternal garden. You are always one step away from this peace, always one prayer away from this comfort, always one sigh away from this serenity that doesn't depend on external circumstances. Breathe deeply the divine fragrance of this garden. Feel how every cell in your body fills with heavenly peace, preparing for the most restorative rest. In the heart of this divine house, the Father reserved a very special space, a dining room where people shared not just food, but where hearts met, where stories intertwined, where true communion happened in its purest and most beautiful form. The table in this room was different from any other you've ever seen. It wasn't made of ordinary wood, but carved from the very essence of paternal love. Its surface reflected not physical appearances, but the beauty of the soul of each person who sat there. When you approached this table, you saw reflected your true identity, not as the world saw it, but as the Father always saw it: perfect, loved, precious beyond any measure. Around this table were chairs that never stayed empty for long. Each one was crafted especially for different types of human needs. There was the chair of compassion for days when you arrived wounded, upholstered with the softest divine understanding. The chair of celebration for moments of victory, decorated with heavenly joy. The chair of silence for when words were unnecessary, where just being present was enough. But the most special chair was the one the Father reserved specifically for you. It knew perfectly the shape of your tired shoulders, the curve of your back when it carried heavy burdens. This chair automatically adjusted to your emotional state, firmer when you needed structure, softer when you needed comfort. I vividly remember the first time you sat at this table. You arrived hesitant, unsure if you really belonged in that sacred place. Your clothes were wrinkled from life's struggles. Your eyes carried marks of poorly slept nights. Your heart beat irregularly with the weight of anxiety. But the moment you touched the chair that had been prepared with such care, something magical happened. The hesitation melted away like morning mist. The feeling of not belonging evaporated completely. You were home. You were in the right place. You were exactly where you always should have been. The Father, seated at the head of the table, smiled with that smile that melts mountains of worry. "My beloved child," he said, "this table was set thinking of you. Every dish was chosen to nourish not just your body, but your weary soul. Every drink was prepared to quench a thirst you didn't even know you had. And what a feast it was. It wasn't just physical food, but spiritual nourishment served in generous abundance. There were dishes of forgiveness that dissolved any resentment, kept in the heart. Cups of joy that restored the ability to smile genuinely. Breads of hope that sustained the spirit on the most difficult days. The first dish the Father always served was soup of unconditional acceptance. It was warm, comforting, made with ingredients of pure love that warmed from the first spoonful to the last. This soup had special power to heal wounds of rejection, to calm hearts that felt inadequate, to convince souls that they were worthy of true love. Then came the main course, food that changed according to your need of the moment. Sometimes it was meat of divine strength for when you needed courage. Other times it was fish of wisdom for important decisions. Often it was lamb of gentleness to calm spirits agitated by anger or frustration. But perhaps the most impressive thing about this table was that it was never empty, never closed, never had a sign saying "come back later." It was a table on duty, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Because the Father knew that spiritual hunger doesn't follow conventional schedules, that thirst for God can arise in the deepest hours of the night. During one of those meals, I especially remember a night when you came to the table completely exhausted. It had been a particularly difficult day. Problems at work, conflicts in relationships, an overwhelming feeling that nothing was going right. Your shoulders weighed as if they carried the entire world. You sat in your special chair and simply rested your head on the table, without strength even to lift your eyes. It was then that the Father got up from his place, came to you, and with hands gentler than a spring breeze, began to massage your tense shoulders. "My child," he whispered as his divine fingers dissolved knots of accumulated tension. "You don't need to carry everything alone. This table exists so we can share not just meals, but burdens too. Let me carry what's too heavy for you. And there, in that intimate and sacred moment, you experienced for the first time the true meaning of communion, not just being together, but allowing someone to enter the most vulnerable spaces of your heart, into the corners where you kept fears and insecurities, into the drawers where you hid pain that no one else knew existed. The desert at this heavenly table was always the same, but never got old. Candy of fulfilled promises. Each bite brought memory of divine faithfulness. Each piece melted in your mouth, releasing the flavor of hopes that became reality. It was dessert that satisfied completely, that left a lasting sensation of spiritual fullness. At the end of each meal, a special ritual always happened. The Father took a cup of heavenly crystal and filled it with wine of unconditional love. He passed this cup from hand to hand around the table, and each person drank not just wine, but renewal. Not just liquid, but new life. Not just beverage, but a sealed promise that they would never be abandoned when it was your turn to drink. From this cup, you felt as if liquid love flowed through your veins, reaching every cell, every organ, every thought. It was as if your DNA was rewritten with codes of love, as if your fundamental identity was redefined by the divine perspective. This table, my dear one, remains set for you tonight. No matter how late the hour, no matter how heavy your heart, your place is saved, your chair is here, your plate is being prepared with infinite love. Feel invited to come closer to this sacred table. Let the heavenly aroma of this communion surround you, preparing your spirit for deep and restorative rest. Climbing the gentle stairs of this divine house, made of steps of hope that never caused weariness, we reached the upper floor where the most precious room of the entire building was located, the room specially prepared for your rest. This wasn't just a place to sleep, but a sanctuary where body and soul found complete renewal. The door of this room recognized your footstep even in the hallway. Before you even reached it, it would open silently, revealing an interior that took your breath away with its simple and welcoming beauty. It wasn't ostentatious luxury that impressed, but the immediate feeling of being in the safest place in the universe. The walls were painted with colors that changed subtly according to your emotional needs. When you arrived anxious, they would take on soft blue tones that automatically calmed your nervous system. On nights of sadness, they became lightly golden, radiating warmth that heated the wounded heart. On celebration days, they gained nuances of hopeful green that celebrated your victories along with you. In the center of the room was the most comfortable bed that divine hands could create. It wasn't made just of wood and fabric, but built with heavenly materials that the Father had reserved especially for moments when his children needed true rest. The mattress was filled with feathers of peace, soft as clouds but firm as eternal. Promises the sheets of this bed were woven with threads of divine consolation. When you lay down and pulled the covers up to your neck, it was like a paternal embrace enveloping you completely. These sheets had the special property of absorbing worries. You would lie down carrying the day's anxieties, but by morning they had been filtered through the sacred weave, leaving only pure peace in their place. The pillows were chosen with even greater care. One was made of forgiveness plumes for nights when the weight of guilt prevented sleep. Another was filled with the essence of hope for when despair whispered lies in your ears. There was also the gratitude pillow, which helped you remember blessings received even on the most difficult days. But what made this room truly special was the constant presence of the Holy Spirit, who had designated himself as the personal guardian of your rest. He would sit in a chair beside the bed, watching over your sleep like a loving father watches over his beloved child's rest. I remember nights when you would come to this room, completely desperate. Insomnia had become an unwanted companion. Anxiety stole the peace you sought so much. Thoughts raced like wild horses, impossible to tame. On these nights, the Holy Spirit would rise from his chair and begin the delicate work of calming your agitated mind. First, he would gently touch your forehead, dissolving the tension accumulated in your temples. Then, his divine fingers would move across your eyelids, teaching them to remain peacefully closed. His hands would then move to your shoulders, releasing knots of worry that you didn't even know you were carrying. "Rest, my dear one," he would whisper with a voice softer than the night breeze. "I will take care of everything that worries you while you sleep. Your anxieties will stay here with me. Your fears will be under my guard. When you wake up, you'll find solutions where you once saw only problems." And then the most beautiful miracle of this sacred room would begin. As you surrendered to divine care, tense muscles would begin to relax one by one. First your feet, then your legs, then your torso, until your entire body became a vessel of liquid peace poured from heaven. Your breathing, previously irregular from anxiety, would find its natural and deep rhythm. Each inhalation brought into you oxygen mixed with the essence of heavenly serenity. Each exhalation carried away emotional toxins accumulated during the day. In the windows of this room, the Father had installed very special curtains woven with threads of divine protection that filtered any negative influence that tried to disturb your rest. But at the same time, they were transparent to the light of hope, allowing the first ray of morning sun to bring renewal for the new day. During your sleep, angels would take turns singing heavenly lullabies. These melodies weren't audible to physical ears, but penetrated directly into your soul, carrying healing frequencies that repaired emotional damage while you slept. It was as if every cell in your body was tuned again to vibrate at the frequency of divine love. There was also a special diffuser in this room that released therapeutic aromas harvested from the heavenly garden. Lavender to calm anxiety, chamomile to induce deep sleep, roses to heal wounds of the heart, jasmine to bring dreams filled with divine promises. On nights of emotional storms, when thunder from difficult circumstances echoed in your mind, this room became an oasis of absolute calm. The walls were spiritually soundproof. No noise of worry could penetrate this sanctuary of peace. The Father had also installed a special heating system in this room. Not ordinary heating, but the warmth of unconditional love that maintained the perfect temperature for your comfort. It was never too cold or too hot. Always the ideal climate for restorative rest. Before you fell completely asleep, the Holy Spirit would always whisper a special blessing over your sleep. May your dreams be windows to heaven. May your rest be deep as an ocean of peace. May you awaken renewed in the certainty of love that never fails. And so, night after night, this sacred room became your refuge, your safe harbor, your place of complete renewal. Here you learned that true rest wasn't just the absence of activity, but the abundant presence of divine peace. Feel how your own room transforms into this sacred sanctuary. Allow the invisible arms of divine love to surround you, preparing you for the most restorative sleep you've ever experienced. Going down the gentle stairs again, we came to a room that many visitors to the divine house discovered by chance, but which had been carefully planned by the Father from the beginning of construction, the Library of Heart Secrets. This was the place where all stories met, where questions found answers, where life's mysteries revealed themselves. Like pages of an open book, the shelves of this library weren't made of ordinary wood, but carved from eternal wisdom itself. They stretched from floor to ceiling, filled with volumes that contained not just words, but living experiences, not just knowledge, but deep understanding that transformed whoever touched them. Each book in this library had a special story. Some were as ancient as creation, bound in heavenly leather and written with liquid love ink. Others were contemporary, their pages still being written as life stories unfolded. But all had something in common. They were written thinking of you, to answer your questions, to heal your confusion, to illuminate paths that seemed lost in darkness. In the center of the library was a round table made of heavenly crystal, where you could sit to read in comfort. This table had the special property of amplifying any truth found in the books, making words jump from the pages straight to your heart, where they transformed into personal and intimate revelation. The first section that always caught attention was the collection of fulfilled promises. Here were recorded all the times the Father said yes to his children's prayers, all the doors he opened when they all seemed closed, all the miracles he performed when situations seemed impossible. I remember an afternoon when you entered this library carrying a heart heavy with doubts. You questioned whether God really cared about your small problems, whether your prayers were heard, whether there was real purpose amid the chaos your life seemed to have become. I guided you to this special section and placed in your hands a book that contained only your story, all the times the Father had answered your prayers, even when you didn't realize it at the time. Page by page, you discovered a pattern of divine faithfulness that had gone unnoticed amid daily worries. There was the story of that time when you asked for a job and didn't get the position you wanted so much. At the time, it seemed like rejection, but the book revealed how the Father was preparing a much better opportunity that would come 3 months later. It showed the divine backstage, the pieces being moved invisibly and lovingly to create the perfect scenario for your blessing. Another fascinating section was the Library of Hidden Purposes. Here were kept books that explained the why behind each difficult experience, each trial that seemed meaningless, each pain you questioned why you had to go through it. These volumes were written with special ink that only became visible when you were emotionally ready to receive the revelation. One of the most sought-after books in this section was titled, "Why Did This Happen to Me?" Its pages contained gentle but profound explanations about how each wound would become a source of healing for others, how each scar would transform into a map of hope for someone lost, how each tear shed would water a garden of compassion in your heart. There was also the unsent letters section, where all the words the Father wanted to have said to you at specific moments in your life were kept, but which you weren't in an emotional position to receive at the time. They were letters of encouragement written during your darkest nights, love notes scribbled while you cried alone, messages of hope dated from the days when despair seemed to have one. I especially remember the day you discovered an entire folder dedicated to your moments of greatest discouragement. Each letter was precisely dated, written at the exact moment when you felt most abandoned. "My dear child," said one of them, "I know today it seems like I'm far away, but I'm here, right beside you, crying with you, already planning your restoration." The dream interpretation section occupied an entire wall of the library. Here were catalogued all the dreams you'd had over the years, with detailed explanations about the messages heaven was trying to transmit through them. Many dreams that seemed confusing or meaningless revealed themselves to be treasure maps, guiding you to important discoveries about your destiny and purpose. But perhaps the most exciting section was the future preview, where you could flip through pages that showed glimpses of what the Father had prepared for your next chapters. They weren't complete spoilers. The Father knew that surprises were part of life's adventure, but they were enough to kindle hope and keep faith burning even in the most challenging periods. In these future pages, you saw moments of joy that were still to come, special people who would cross your path, opportunities that would open when you least expected. You also saw that current problems that seemed permanent had expiration dates, that situations that seemed impossible had creative solutions being prepared in the divine. Backstage, the librarian of this special section was the Holy Spirit himself, who knew the exact location of every book, every page, every word you needed to read at any specific moment. He never made you search much. He always appeared at your side with the exact volume your soul was seeking, opened to the precise page that would answer your most urgent question. In the quieter corners of the library, there were heavenly leather armchairs where you could settle in for longer readings. These chairs had the special property of adjusting perfectly to your body, offering ideal support for hours of discovery and revelation. Beside each armchair, a small table with wisdom tea that never got cold, and understanding cookies that satisfied spiritual hunger. During one of these extended reading sessions, I remember you discovering a book that completely changed your perspective. It was a thin, simple volume titled Your Importance in the Eternal Plan. Page by page, you discovered how your life, with all its apparent insignificances, was a fundamental piece in the puzzle of God's kingdom. You read about people who were touched by your kindness without you knowing, about prayers that were answered because you interceded, about lives that were saved because you chose to be a channel of divine love. You discovered that nothing in your existence was accidental, that each day had a specific purpose, that your presence in the world made an eternal difference. There was a special section called Instruction Manual for Difficult Days, where heavenly protocols for navigating through life's storms were kept. These manuals were written in simple language, with step-by-step instructions on how to apply eternal principles in practical, everyday situations near the window that overlooked the serenity garden was the poetry of the Divine Heart section, where the Father himself had written verses about you. They weren't just pretty words, but declarations of love impossible to contain. Sonnets about your unique beauty, haikus about special moments you shared together. Before leaving the library on each visit, the Holy Spirit would always place in your hands a small book to take with you, daily reminders of paternal love. This volume had the special property of always opening to the page you needed to read on that specific day, offering the exact word of encouragement, wisdom, or comfort your soul was seeking. This library, my dear one, remains open to you every night. When sleep is slow to come, when questions spin in your mind like leaves in the wind, remember that answers are available, organized with love, waiting for the moment when you're ready to receive them. Feel the wisdom of this heavenly library, flowing through your mind, organizing thoughts, bringing clarity, preparing your soul for deep and revealing rest. As our journey through this sacred house came to an end, so came the most intimate and precious moment of every visit, the moment of the final embrace. This didn't happen in a specific room, but wherever you were when you felt the deep need for absolute connection with paternal love. Sometimes it was in the garden, among the perfumes of flowers that healed anxiety. Other times in the library, surrounded by eternal wisdom. Often it happened in the sacred restroom, moments before restorative sleep. But always, always, it happened when you most needed to feel that you weren't alone in the universe. The Father had a special way of embracing that transcended physical limitations. His arms weren't made just of flesh and bone, but woven with the pure essence of unconditional love. When he enveloped you in this heavenly embrace, you felt as if every cell in your body was kissed by eternity, as if every anxious thought was dissolved by peace that surpasses understanding. I remember the first time you experienced this divine embrace. It had been a particularly difficult day, full of disappointments and frustrations. You came to the house with a broken heart, questioning your worth, doubting if you really mattered to anyone in the universe. You entered through the front door, with your head down, dragging feet heavy with the weight of sadness. The Father was waiting in the main room, arms already open before you even crossed the threshold. He didn't say a single word. Sometimes true love dispenses with explanations. He simply opened arms that had been waiting for this moment since morning when you left home carrying burdens too heavy to bear alone. When you approached and allowed yourself to be enveloped by this tangible love, something extraordinary happened. Tears that had been held back for weeks finally found freedom to flow. They weren't just tears of sadness, but also of deep relief at finally being in a place where you could be completely vulnerable without fear of judgment. "My precious child," whispered the Father while your tears wet his heavenly shirt. "You've carried this weight alone for too long. Let me take upon myself everything that's too heavy for your shoulders. I'm a specialist in transforming burdens into blessings, pain into purpose, tears into seeds of future joy." And it was in this embrace that you understood, perhaps for the first time viscerally, what it meant to be unconditionally loved. You didn't need to have perfect performance. You didn't need to hide flaws. You didn't need to pretend you were okay when you weren't. You could simply be human with all the imperfections, fears, and fragilities, and still be completely accepted and valued. The Father's embrace had the power to stop time. Minutes transformed into eternity, and eternity compressed into precious instants. In this sacred space outside conventional time, emotional wounds began the process of deep healing. Old scars lost their power to cause pain. Painful memories were rewritten with ink of hope. Sometimes, during these special embraces, you felt as if you were being carried in his lap, like a small child who feels completely safe in the arms of a loving father. Adult responsibilities temporarily dissolved, allowing the part of you that had never completely grown up, that part that still needed care and protection, to be nourished with infinite tenderness. Other times, the embrace took on the quality of a silent dance, where you and the Father moved to the rhythm of pure love. Steps synchronized by heavenly music that only hearts in deep communion can hear. These were moments of transcendent joy, when you remembered that you were created not just to survive, but to celebrate existence as a precious gift in even deeper embraces. You experienced a phenomenon we called temporary fusion moments, when the boundary between your humanity and the Father's divinity became thin. When you felt pulsing in your chest a heart that beat in unison with God's heart. In these sacred instants, you understood experientially that you really were a beloved child, heir to an eternal kingdom. The Father was never in a hurry to end these embraces. He knew you lived in a world that always rushed genuine connections, that forced people to separate before real intimacy could be established. Therefore, he always waited for you to take the first step away, respecting your rhythm, allowing you to determine the duration of these precious moments. When the time finally came to physically separate, the separation was never abrupt or cold. The Father had a gradual way of releasing the embrace, keeping one hand on your shoulder for a few more moments, looking directly into your eyes to transmit a silent but clear message. You take with you a piece of my heart, and I keep forever. A piece of yours. After each of these embraces, you noticed subtle but profound changes in how you felt about yourself and about life. Problems that seemed insurmountable assumed more manageable proportions. Fears that seemed gigantic shrank to appropriate size. Hopes that had been buried under layers of disappointment began to sprout again, like flowers after rain. Tonight, my dear one, as you prepare to dive into restorative sleep, know that the Father's arms remain open to you. No matter what time it is, no matter how insignificant your problems may seem, you always have direct access to this embrace that heals, that restores, that completely renews. Close your eyes and allow yourself to feel this heavenly embrace surrounding you right now. Feel the warmth of paternal love heating every cold part of your heart. Feel divine peace calming every agitated thought. Feel eternal security dissolving every fear that tries to steal your rest. Remain in this sacred embrace, letting unconditional love prepare your body and soul for the deepest and most restorative sleep. You are safe, you are loved, you are home, ... And so, my beloved child, we come to the end of this special journey through the house that God's love built. But actually, it's not an end. It's just the beginning of a new way of understanding how deeply you were cherished, how carefully your life was planned, how eternally you belong to the Father's heart. As your eyelids become heavy and your breathing finds the gentle rhythm of approaching rest, carry with you the unshakable certainty that this house remains always open to you. Each room we visited together continues available. Each embrace remains accessible. Each moment of peace can be revisited whenever your soul needs renewal. The Serenity Garden continues blooming for you. The table of eternal communion remains set with your place reserved. The sacred restroom has its covers always prepared. The Library of Heart's Secrets keeps volumes updated with answers to questions yet to come. And the Father's arms remain eternally open for embraces that heal any wound. Sleep in peace, dear child. Sleep knowing you're not alone, that you're deeply loved, that you have a permanent place in the most important house in the universe. May your dreams be windows to this heavenly home. May your rest be deep as an ocean of divine love. May you awaken renewed in the certainty that you are the beloved child of the King of Kings. Until our next walk together, rest in peace. Amen.
you.